What is up? What is up, sports fans? My name is Jake Iggy, or Iggy for short, and this is Iggy's Sports Talk. So I greatly appreciate everybody tuning in to episode 60 of Iggy's Sports Talk. And today I have a very special guest on the show with me. I have the pleasure of talking to Ryan Westmoreland, who is a former Red Sox prospect. And Ryan, it's an honor talking to you, man. And it's really something where I love your story. I love how you've been able to find light in the unfortunate things that happen throughout your baseball career and have been able to help other people throughout your experience. That's something that I'm trying to do through this podcast is allowing my audience to learn from other people's experiences and try to connect them to their own experiences in their lives. Um, but I wanted to start off really with 2020, such an unfortunate time. A lot of things really happen to people where they look at it in a negative light. And I was just wondering, what was your favorite moment of the year 2020?
Well, certainly my favorite moment was I got married in 2020 to my beautiful wife Libby. Um, Originally, we had planned it for late June with about 175, 200 people, and given this past year, we weren't able to have that many people. Um, but it did open up enough to be able to have 20, 30 close family and friends. We had a little ceremony at the church. Certainly wasn't the 200 person big wedding that you think you're gonna have, but it was great. It was quiet. It was very intricate. It was just us, some family, like I said, and then we had postpone the big reception, and we were able to postpone that until actually in about 2 weeks in July 8th. We're going to be allowed to have the 200 person reception that we initially were going to have, which is really cool. So yeah, it was tough going through the whole thing last year, with the wedding planning and all that, but it worked out. And then a few weeks here, we're going to really be able to celebrate.
Right. That must have been amazing, especially being able to at least have that intimate sort of experience where
Mhm.
you were still able to have the wedding. Obviously, like you said, it must have been tough having to wait, but it's awesome that you're still able to have that 200 person sort of celebration,
Mhm.
and as well as you're going into it already married, and
Already
and so
married,
and
so
so and so it would be great to be able to sort of get those wedding jitters out of the way and just be able to enjoy the people around you.
yeah, and I think we're really excited because not only for us, this is a big celebration for us, but it's also coming at a time where it's a big, people have been locked in their house for almost a year.
Right.
And so to be able to get invited to go out to a wedding and just, let loose a little bit, it's going to be the first time for a lot of people.
Right.
And I think this is coming at a great time.
I completely agree. And then also the other thing to add is you're going to be bringing another person with you that you didn't have before. You just had a baby girl, and you must be super excited to be able to have her there during this whole big celebration. I bet there's a lot of people, like you said, 200 people are going to that reception who haven't been able to meet your girl in person, and you're probably super excited to be able to uh, introduce her essentially to everybody that's important to you.
Exactly. I mean, this whole time, obviously, we want everyone to see the newborn, but given that the pandemic and all that stuff, we didn't obviously let a whole lot of people see her. Um, so they've been just seeing Facebook pictures and text messages, pictures and stuff like that. So no, it's going to be great, especially for the family and friends we have traveling, because they're coming a long way to see me and Libby, and
Right.
obviously now there's a third person to see, so it's going to be exciting.
And how has it been so far? His life as a dad, was it sort of what you expected, or is there a little bit more that goes into it than you expected?
No, it's about what I expected. Obviously, I'm one of the first of my group of friends to have a baby, so I don't have a whole lot of people to help me with their experiences and stuff like that. But we lucked out. I mean, she sleeps great already. She sleeps through the night. She doesn't cry a ton. Knock on wood, because she's only 3 months old. That could change very quickly. Um, but no, I love it. I love being a dad, and I think, she's gonna grow up in a good home, and everyone's happy, everyone's healthy, and that's the most important thing.
Right. That's all that matters. And wow, that's very unusual for a baby to not be crying all the time. And
Yeah.
you it sounds like you got a good winner there.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, like I said, though, knock on wood, because you never know. You never know.
Right, exactly. I completely agree. But I wanted to sort of get into your time early on as a baseball player and really sort of striving towards that dream of going towards the MLB. And was wondering when did that dream first be planted in your mind to where you're like, if I'm able to get there, that'd be incredible.
Yeah, well, I think, as being a dream, I think since like Little League, I'm from Rhode Island. I grew up always wanting to play for the Red Sox. So it was certainly always a dream of mine. But I wouldn't say it became a reality until probably my sophomore, junior year of high school, when scouts were there every day and I was getting phone calls left and right. Um, I grew up playing multiple sports: soccer, basketball, football, all kinds of sports, and just staying active. So really I didn't zone in on baseball, I would say, until sophomore year, when I realized that I could play this sport at the next level, and I love doing it and everything about it. And I would say, maybe I do have a future playing this game.
Right. And was there anybody during that process who really doubted you in any way? Because I know anytime I said, oh, my dream is to be a baseball player, there's always people who are like, well, that's one in a million. That's less than
Mhm.
winning the lottery, or you know, that's gonna be so tough to do. And how were you able to stay determined on that dream even if there was doubters?
Yeah, I mean, there certainly were. I don't know who, or but growing up in Rhode Island, a little state like this, it's you don't see a whole lot of the professional athletes coming out of Rhode Island, at least in the early 2000s or 2008. So I certainly had to overcome, being a kid from Rhode Island, not having played a ton of travel AAU baseball. So the perspective is that, or perception is that, kid from Rhode Island, he's not going to make it. He might be pretty good, but once he gets playing with college kids and kids from California and Texas and the big baseball states, we doubt that he's going to really make it that far. So I didn't set out in baseball to prove them wrong. I just kind of went about my business just like I always had. Just played the game that I loved. Wasn't worried about the fact that I was from Rhode Island. Um, just kind of took it one day at a time, and it was certainly overwhelming to have hundreds of scouts at every game. But I took that in stride and took that day by day. Um, and eventually, got to where I wanted to go. And for all the people around that maybe would think Rhode Island doesn't have many athletes or baseball talent, myself, Rocco Baldelli, a few other Rhode Island guys said I'm wrong. And I think now Rhode Island is on the map as far as baseball. We have a lot of talent.
Right.
The coach at the high school level, so I've seen it firsthand. The talent is there, and we're getting recognized more, which is big.
Oh yeah, 100%. And as you know, I'm from New Hampshire, so with the New England sort of aurora around baseball,
Mhm.
we have to train indoors during the winter.
Yep.
Wow, you look at, like you said, Florida, Texas, California have the opportunity to train all year round.
Mhm.
And that's
Yep.
also where, most of the big schools are and where a lot of the hype players are.
Yep.
But that's awesome that you were able to block out all that noise, even if there was like hundreds of scouts there for you. And, you might have felt a little bit pressure. You sort of helped use that pressure to fuel you to play better.
Yeah, I did. I did. I certainly wasn't, before every game saying there's so many people around the country that don't think I'm any good, but I just did what I knew how to do, what I love to do, and um, certainly helped put Rhode Island baseball on the map, because there's talent here, and it's getting recognized, which is a good thing. And as a player, I just wanted to get to the highest level I could. I wasn't worried about proving people wrong. It was more about blocking everything out and just playing baseball. If I made it to the major leagues, I made it. If I didn't make it past high school, I didn't. But I worked hard. I loved playing.
Right. That's a great way to look at it. And I think that's something where, like, a lot of sports, especially baseball, is going right now, just focusing on making sure that the kids are having fun and that there's not that immense pressure that you have to be somewhere, or you have to win. I think that's a perfect way to look at it, especially. I've gotten really into Mike Stud, the artist, and he
Yeah,
talks
like
a lot about.
Sander, I played against him in high school, and
Oh, really? That's funny. Yeah, because
yeah.
he talks a lot about as well, like the same thing that you said, like that people look at Rhode Island kids and they're like, yeah, they're not going to get anywhere. And he's a perfect example. He went to Duke. He has the best ERA there in history. Unfortunately, he had Tommy John surgery and stopped playing. But yeah, it's amazing how, like, especially you're one of the guys and he's one of the guys, and like you said, Rocco Baldelli is they're pioneering for a state like Rhode Island, especially New England.
Right, right.
And then just as you were going out of high school, you had the opportunity to go to Vanderbilt as well on a scholarship. And exactly, there we go. And what was sort of your feeling about getting drafted out of high school? Was there really any pressure to it? And did you have in the back of your mind, like, could I be making a mistake by not going to college first?
Well, that was a crazy time. I literally, had my bags packed for Vanderbilt because, I wasn't in many, if any, mock drafts. So I
Yeah.
really didn't even think I was going to get drafted. And if I did, it was going to be so late. Like, we're going to go to Vanderbilt, which is great. And I was excited. But it really became really overwhelming, the week or so before the draft, when I started getting calls left and right, and my name was on ESPN every night, on all of these mock drafts, and these big name guys on, analysts on TV are talking about me. So at that point, I had no idea. I didn't know where I was going to go. I still didn't know if I was going to go in the draft. And, I was committed to a school like Vanderbilt, where I was so excited to go there and be a part of that and play under Coach Tim Corbin. Um, but at the end of the day, my ultimate goal is to play for the Boston Red Sox or play in the major leagues. And if something happened and it was the right situation, um, then I would feel like, I could make it to the major leagues. And whether it was college or pro, I wanted to take the quickest way to that goal.
Right.
And so it certainly wasn't a case of I don't want to go to Vanderbilt. It was more a case of this is my path. This is what the route I'm going to go to make it to the major leagues. So, I got a call on draft morning saying, "Hey, we're going to take you 6 overall," or I forgot the number, but and so for me, I was like, "What?" Because at this point, my bags are still packed, and I'm still ready to go to Nashville, which I'm so excited for. But then my phone starts, I'm getting calls every 2-3 minutes, or text messages or emails or whatever. And so it was a crazy, crazy 24 hours of the draft and all that went along with it. But I think I made the right choice, and um, it was a day I'll never forget. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, I bet. Especially growing up as a Red Sox fan. I mean, you see behind me. I mean, that was my
Yeah.
dream growing up, and like,
Yep.
just like you have that in that mind, being able to play at Fenway Park, and it must have been incredible. Obviously, at 18, 19 years old, to see that dream essentially becoming a reality. But
Mhm.
especially with getting drafted where you did, and then I also read as well, you got a $2 million signing bonus. Was there any sort of sense of pressure on your shoulders to live up to those expectations of that money figure and where you got picked?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like threefold this answer is. And one, still being a kid from Rhode Island, I was good at baseball, but a lot of people would have said, he's still from Rhode Island. Like, who knows? Like, he hasn't played a ton out in Texas, and
Right.
against all those guys. So there's that pressure. The money pressure, obviously huge, just because you get kids around the country that don't get much money. So they're probably doubting whether I'm going to live up to that amount of money. So there's pressure there. And, again, being drafted by the Boston Red Sox, being from Rhode Island, I was a local kid. So that comes with an unbelievable amount of pressure because essentially everyone in New England, including the Boston Red Sox media, is looking at this local kid
Right.
and saying, hey, the Red Sox took the New England kid. Let's see if he can live up to what goes on here. So there was three, monumental forms of pressure. And for an 18-year-old kid from Rhode Island, not a ton of baseball experience, that was certainly a tough thing to adjust to at first.
Oh, true. I bet I didn't even think about the whole like Boston media part of it as well, because I bet anytime you even just were around like Rhode Island, just coming back home or that sort of stuff, that's all people would really talk to you about. And
Okay.
it's something where like even if like you had an incredible first season, but let's say you hit like in the 100s
Mhm.
and you didn't live up to those expectations, like you would be walking around in fear that people weren't going to really treat you right or say something to you, and just like the anxiety must have been tough, at least at first.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even things like going out to dinner or going out golfing with my friends,
Hmm.
just never knowing who's out there and what they're expecting of you. And I didn't want to disappoint anyone,
Right.
but at the same time I wanted to just say, back off, let me play, let me just
Yeah.
let me just go out and do what I do. And I was lucky enough to have a really good first year, which in turn came with even more pressure. um, but I was able to kind of, as the season went on, kind of mature and understand this is Boston.
Right. I bet right after you got drafted, like, I mean, you're 18, 19 years old. Like, that's just the reality of the situation. And so like you said, you matured a little bit through that time being with the team. But at
Mhm.
first, like you're really just trying to figure out what the heck this is. You just literally just graduated high school. Like me thinking in my mind, graduating high school, like where I was like compared to now, like is like massive. And
Right.
um especially with all the Boston media and stuff. And so, like, how were you able to stay determined throughout that first season and just continue trying to do your best and get better every single day?
Yeah, well, it started in 2008 when I got drafted. It was, I think the draft was June 5th, um, and school didn't end until June 20th. So
Wow.
here I am, literally in class, getting talked to by everyone in the school and their
Right.
parents and all that stuff. And so that's huge pressure. It's just being that guy, get
Mhm.
drafted out of a small school in Rhode Island, um, having to think about what's going on. But I had I'm from a great place, Portsmouth. And so I had a ton of support, which is great. But when I went up to Lowell for my first season, it was that media circus that we just talked about. They had before opening day, there's kind of a media day.
Mhm.
um, and for a single A team, it's not a huge deal. But I think from being from Rhode Island, being that local kid, there was probably 60, 70 reporters there just to talk to me, not about not really about baseball, about my high school stats or anything, more about how does it feel to be from Rhode Island and to now be with the Red Sox. And so that was a ton of pressure, and that was before my first pro game. um,
Wow.
so that was tough. That was a whirlwind. um, but as the season went on, I really matured. I was obviously on a team full of college kids, pretty much.
Mhm.
So, as I matured, I was probably one of the only 17 or 18, 19-year old kids in that league. I played well. I kept my head down. I was respectful about, with the older kids that obviously played college and I didn't. Um, and the media was great because I mean, I say this, they were great because I did well, and
Right.
that was a big benefit of playing well. um, but it was fun. I mean, because here I am, 18 years old, and I'm getting paid to play baseball. You know what I mean? And not a whole lot of kids get to say that. So it was really cool. And after that first season, getting the Baseball America top prospect, the Red Sox top prospect, and everything.
Hmm.
That was a lot of pressure, but more pressure that I was ready to deal with. Because I'd just gone through a whole season of blocking things out and keeping my head down and going about my business. So when all these rankings came out, all these people asked for interviews and stuff, I was ready to talk about how I'm just going to keep my head down and I'm just going to keep playing baseball. I could be ranked one, I could be ranked 1,000, but that wasn't going to change how I played and how I went about, both on and off the field.
Right. And that's a perfect mindset to have because that's all you could really do is just try and do your best. Because
Mhm.
in 2009 for your first season, I'm just going to list off the stats. I mean, you hit 296, 7 home runs, and 35 RBIs. And like you said, when the rankings started coming out, like for people who don't understand what Baseball America is, like that's all the prospect rankings, and pretty much everybody in baseball can see that. And you were ranked number 21,
Mhm.
and Mike Trout was ranked number 50. And so, really, just looking at your name being sort of in the top 20, top 30, what sort of like pressure did you feel about that hype? I mean, did you feel some sort of weight on your shoulders? And especially after that season, did you have in your mind, like, well, I gotta replicate this in some way?
Absolutely. As much as I wanted to block everything out and take care of what I needed to take care of and just keep playing the game I love, it turned into now there's thousands of people there watching every move I make,
Right.
just to see if I could perform. And that came with a lot of pressure, just wanting to live up to being the number 21 guy in the world.
Hmm.
Um, or the Red Sox number one guy in the system. That came with a lot of pressure. The prospects, bloggers and reporters, and not only just the media people, but my teammates, because
Hmm.
here are these kids, may not know me. They come in from college, they come in from high school, and somebody says to them, "That's Westmoreland. He's the number one guy." So automatically that person has in their mind, this kid's a stud. Like he's got to be good. He has to be
Right.
good. So I definitely dealt with that all the time. Um, but at the same time, it was like, this it is what it is. I could be number 800 and getting, people yelling at me, and not yelling, but you know what I mean, talking
Yeah.
down about me and
Right.
talking bad about me, which would have hurt my feelings. But as a pro athlete, good or bad, you just gotta roll with it, and you just gotta put your head down, like I keep saying, and do your best. And um, that's all you can ask for. That's all anyone can ask for. So it was tough getting me the 19, 20-year-old having all this on my plate. But at the same time, I was at a place like I'm a pro baseball player, and this is what happens, and let's deal with it. Uh, and more pressure. I was in single A my first year, so I was getting a lot of when's he going to be in the major leagues? Like when's he
Right.
going to get called up? So that was a whole other thing to deal with, because on top of everything that people are saying, they're also saying, blah 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 is in the outfield until Westmoreland's ready, stuff like that. So I'm, obviously nervous
Wow.
because I obviously have some serious hype to live up to, if I want to go from single A to the major leagues.
Right, exactly. And I mean, you alluded to it earlier with the pressure of just being in Rhode Island. And so like, I mean, there started with the pressure of you getting drafted by the Red Sox, but now you're the number one guy of the future.
Mhm.
And so like how was that feeling, especially coming back from your first season and, seeing all those rankings come out? Like, did people treat you differently in like your hometown, or like where you ran around in the state, or was it very similar to what happened like after you got drafted?
Yeah, I mean, it was similar in a way to when I got drafted, but after the first season, that's when I was on TV all the time, on the radio all the time. And, so I'm getting people calling and texting me out of the woodwork, obviously. Um, but you obviously know, like I said earlier, when you're at the dinner or doing whatever, people are talking in the
Mhm.
background, that's Ryan Westmoreland, and he's going to be the next guy at Fenway. And so that was kind of weird. Certainly nothing that I had dealt with playing in high school, in high school. So I wasn't ready for that. But again, it was more about just proving those rankings right, just doing what I do and, show everyone why I was, number 21 or whatever, show them why I was the Red Sox top guy. And if I didn't do well and it wasn't meant to be, it wasn't meant to be. And I wouldn't, hang my head about that because I know I gave everything to this game that I have. So it was kind of both worlds. I felt a lot of pressure, but at the same time, I had the blockers on and I wanted to just play baseball.
Right. I feel like this is perfect perspective, not only in your situation, but just in life. That's something that I try to always keep in my mind, is that everything happens for a reason, and we go through situations in our life to help us with other situations in the future. But I mean, really, with all that, like you're essentially a celebrity in
Mhm.
New England, and you said it perfectly, 18, 19 years old, almost going into 20 years old. But I mean, at that time, really must have been tough. But and then especially going into your second year,
Mhm.
and then in
That's when
spring
the
training,
celebrity, that's when the celebrity status kind of, I got that feeling just
right?
because getting drafted is one thing, but after that first year, that's when the celebrity status kind of came about, which obviously I was 19. I didn't want to, I'm not a celebrity.
Yeah.
But to the people around you in Rhode Island and I watched you play, Little League baseball and stuff, they get that sense of well, he's going to be a celebrity or he already is. And he's on
Mhm.
the verge of stardom, I guess you could say.
Right. Yeah. That must have been really tough to be able to grasp at that age. And then,
Mhm.
I mean, just going into spring training and then having something happen where you're stretching and you just don't feel right. And then, you got to go to the doctors with the team doctors and get x-rays and figure out what is going on with you right now. And sort of what was your mindset through that? And when did you start feeling off going into your second season?
Yeah, it was probably late February of 2010. So I had been there for about a month. And I was feeling great. I was feeling ready to go. The rankings were what they were, but I was, as driven as ever to make it to the major leagues. Maybe not during that season,
Hmm.
maybe the year after, but put myself in a spot where, I was on that verge and, it could have gone either way, big leagues or still in minor leagues. Um, but yeah, I was doing like a dynamic stretch and everything kind of went weak and numb. So I was obviously like, what is going on? And, at that point, I had the thought of, you know, I think that maybe I'll be fine tomorrow, but maybe something's going to happen. I'm not going to play today or this season. So it's kind of a lot of being unsure. I didn't really know what the future held until I got, the MRI, the X-ray, all that, the medical stuff. So that was kind of like a very confusing process, just because I didn't really know exactly what the future was or was not going to hold.
Right. I bet. I mean, especially with just that feeling. I mean, I read something where you were playing Call of Duty and your thumb just went numb. I mean, that must have been scary as hell, especially at your age with all that pressure, with all that hype around you. You're like, wait, I'm supposed to go out here and show these people that that these stats weren't just a fluke. And
Exactly.
and then now you're going in and getting X-rays
Mhm.
and then you get diagnosed with this disease called Govornis malformation, and you're hearing that if this doesn't get treated right, then you could be blinded, paralyzed, or even die. And
Mm.
for people who have never heard what this is, you just give them a brief description and just really what was your sort of first reaction when you heard it?
Yeah, so the cavernous malformation or angioma, or there's a lot of different terminology for it. It's like a tangle of a blood vessels, so it's like a blood clot. And mine was on my brainstem, which is the worst place you could possibly have it, because it affects. You think about the brainstem, it has all those nerves and functions that go through there. So because of where that was, so many things could have been affected. Like you said, paralyzed, die. Like it went down to things like you could have the hiccups for the rest of your life. Stuff like that, just
Mhm.
you wouldn't think about, but there's so much that runs through that area that controls so much. So it was obviously the worst spot it could be. But that was tough because when I got diagnosed, that's kind of when I realized I'm not going to play. I didn't have the mindset like I'm never going to play again, because I did. And I was very motivated. I was very driven to get to the major leagues. But I knew that something was going on, and it was very serious. And again, a 19, 20-year-old kid, like not a whole lot of 20-year-olds are Red Sox top prospect and have this crazy rare brain disease. So it was tough, and I felt like I was letting people down, but at the same time it was serious, and I had to mature even more, and I did. Um, but it was a tough time, not only for me, but for my family and friends and community where I grew up, that were all supporting and rooting for me every night. It was a tough few months, just kind of that unsure what was gonna, if I was gonna make it, or if I was gonna get back to baseball, or if I was gonna wake up. You know what I mean? Like there was just a lot going on to process, and we did, and thankfully everything worked out, and we moved on from there, and just obviously very grateful for the medical staff I had out there in Phoenix. I had the surgery out in Phoenix, Arizona. So very grateful for the care I had out there and support and stuff like that. That meant a lot for a 20-year-old kid.
Oh yeah, 100%. And especially with just having supportive people around you in such an unknown and scary time, is always super important. And when you were just talking about that, I just got a flashback of watching the report on Nesson about
Mhm.
it. And I remember just like I was 10, 11, 12 years old, and I remember my jaw dropped. I was like, holy crap, like I couldn't even imagine going through something like that. And how were you able to keep a positive mindset in that situation, especially just going into that first surgery?
Well, I mean, I think the reason I could ultimately stay so positive is because I had this lifelong goal pretty much of playing for the Red Sox. And I was an athletic kid. I was very motivated, very driven. So right after that surgery, when I started on, therapy, my ultimate goal was to make it back to Fenway, because not only because I always wanted to, but because I was in, uncharted waters. Like no one had ever done this. No one had ever even come close. Um, so that was another thing that obviously pushed me. Um, but at the same time, I felt like, here I am after this big traumatic thing, and I don't want to let people down. I don't want people that have been supporting me. I want them to see that I'm going to be positive, and maybe I don't make it back to the pro baseball level, but they're going to see me undergo something as traumatic as I did, and come out on the other side, optimistic and positive, and in a good, headspace. And that's what I did. It was tough at first, because you go from being this elite athlete, top of your game in baseball, on one of the top prospects in baseball, to all of a sudden it taking you 15-20 minutes to tie your shoes, stuff like that, like little things that you wouldn't even think of, all of a sudden became like unbelievably hard. So that was hard to deal with, but at the same time, I was in a spot where I had to force myself to be more mature and to accept the fact that whatever happened happened, and there's nothing I can go back and do about it. It's just one of those things that, you know, they always say like God doesn't heal or doesn't deal cards to people that can't handle them. And that was the card that I was dealt, and I wanted to just be optimistic, be positive, keep my head up, and come out on the other side.
Right, and that's a perfect way to look at it. And you said it perfectly. I mean, you had to relearn pretty much every single simple task.
Yeah.
Like you said, just tying your shoes took a good amount of time, like double probably what it did before. And
Yep.
just that sort of experience, just doing simplistic things to where you were able to easily do it for 20 years of your life before that
Yeah.
must have been very frustrating at first. And for people who or players who have um, are coming back from bad injury, what advice do you have for them that really helped you get through that tough time?
Man, take it a day at a time, because I learned, obviously in sports and baseball, you see guys get like Tommy John surgery or rotator cuff, which is certainly not of the same kind of surgery as brainstem surgery. um, but I learned through my rehab process, there's going to be good days and there's going to be bad days. And I'll tell you right now, there were days that I said I'm never going to play baseball again, and there were days that said, that I said to myself, I'm ready to go take batting practice, stuff like that. So being able to look back and say, you just take it slow, take it a day at a time. Whether it's those good or bad days, just keep the same mindset. Even if you're frustrated at whatever it is, rehab, and I've been there. I've seen guys with Tommy John really frustrated. Just turn the page, just move on to that next day, because that bad day might turn into a good one the next day. You never know. And so that would be what if I could look back and or if I could tell someone, how I got through it, what I got through, is just take it slow, take it a day at a time.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's all a process, and sometimes in our minds, we set like timestamps or dates when things are supposed to happen, and we're like, why is this not getting
Mhm.
better at this time? But just like you said, take it day by day. It's all a process, and
Mhm.
with all that struggle, being able to come back, like really, like you said it perfectly. Like there's some days where you felt like I'm never going to play baseball again, and then there's some days where you're super motivated. And
Yeah.
how were you able to keep that drive and motivation even through all the frustrations?
Yeah, it was hard. It was certainly harder at first because, like I said to you, I was a guy that, one day could hit the ball 500 feet, and the next day it took a while to tie my shoes. So certainly at the beginning was like, what is happening? Why me?
Right.
What is going on? And why is this not, because I was 20 years old. I wanted to snap my fingers and get back on the baseball field, right? Um, but over the course of time, the rehab process, I realized that it's not going to happen. I'm not just going to wake up and be, back in center field in front of thousands. I knew I had to understand that it was a process. And the way I was able to forget those bad days and move forward is because I had a lot of dates in rehab where I broke through, or broke into a milestone. Like I did something that would let me believe that I was going to play again. And some days it was literally screwing on a bottle cap, and that was weird. Time that's really hard for me. It's really hard. So when I was able to do that in a short amount of time, I said, those frustrating days, they're worth it, because as frustrated as I was dealing with that, now I know what it feels like to actually complete that. And that's just, screwing on the bottle cap. The same goes for taking batting practice. I remember rehabbing and being frustrated every day. And then I got out there with a pitching machine or with somebody throwing batting practice and didn't even need to swing the bat to be like, you know what? All those days of just sitting in the training room, working on my eyesight, all that stuff, that was worth it. As frustrating as it was worth it because now I'm out here, taking swings. And so it's little things like that that really helped me because it gets like I keep saying, it gets really frustrating, like day after day after day,
Yeah.
with not a whole lot of progress. But then when you do something as successful or as big as batting practice or playing catch, stuff like that, it makes all those tough days worth it.
I 100% bet. And it's incredible as well that you were able to come all the way back from that first surgery, be able to play a little bit in the Dominican Instructional League in 2011. And then obviously you got the unfortunate news that you had to get a second surgery and that the brain stem or that it reformed. And that must have been really tough to hear that news. And especially with you waking up after that second surgery, being deaf in your right ear and blind in your left eye. Like, what was your immediate reaction right after that? And I mean, that must have been super tough at first to look at it in a positive light because you're like, I just went through all this and now I got to do it all over again, but even harder.
Exactly. And that's exactly why it wasn't positive, just because I had worked so hard to get to where I was.
Right.
And here we go. I had the mindset of, okay, I gotta do this again. Um, so that was obviously really tough to hear when I was gonna have to go back out to Arizona. But yeah, once I woke up from that second surgery, I could have told you within 3 minutes I'm not going to play baseball again. Like, no, there's 0% chance.
Mhm.
Um, but I tried. I tried because I was driven. I was very motivated. I wanted to be the best. And so I tried. I did. Um, but at the same time, it was hard. It was the why me, mindset was bigger than ever because, not only why did I have to go through this once, why is a 20 or 21-year-old kid have to go through this twice? You know what I mean? And like I said to you before, I was at one point this elite, like ridiculously good athlete. So why am I, sitting in the hospital bed in Arizona? Like, why am I having to deal with what I'm having to deal with instead of just being a kid and playing baseball? You know what I mean? So that was really tough, and that got to a pretty dark place because that why me was very prominent because not only was I thinking, why me, why me, why me, I was in a place physically where I couldn't move and I was, on the couch all day because I physically couldn't walk yet. So that was tough because sometimes when you get into these mindsets, one of the best things you can do is distract yourself, go out for a run, go out for a walk. For me, take batting practice or, play catch, just something to ease your mind, to do something. But where I was physically was I couldn't do any of that. I couldn't do anything besides sit on the couch and watch TV. And of course I found out some videos of me hitting were on YouTube. So obviously I was watching that nonstop. Um, but eventually I got out of it and there was no magic cure. There was just talking to my family, talking to my friends,
Mhm.
um understanding that what I went through was meant to be. For as unfortunate as it was, there's nothing I could have done about it. It wasn't one of those things where I accidentally bumped my head or did something stupid and this happened. This is something that I was born with. They call it like a birthmark. It's just something that you have, and mine unfortunately bled, and that's what caused everything. Um, so it was tough to deal with, especially being such a young kid. Um, but at the same time, it was, do I want to just shut it down and end it all right now, or do I want to turn this and spin it to what I'm doing now to raise awareness. And
Right.
when people see me at the gym now, they're like, I cannot even believe you're here. Like you couldn't even move like a few years ago, and here you are lifting weights. Just things like that to show people that
Mhm.
you can go through the worst of the worst, but if you have a positive mindset and you're out there to show who you are as a person, that means a lot to people around. And I've had people come up to me all the time and say, just the fact that you're walking around, and I coach baseball now, and it's like, just the fact that you're out here is like, no one even expected that. Like, no one expected you to even be able to do anything, never mind, give back to the community, be in good shape, all these little things that kind of defied the perception of what people thought this brain surgery was going to lead to. And it very easily could have led to that, but I chose to take a path that would hopefully inspire others and
Mhm.
show people that, just a positive mindset can be such a game changer.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that's huge. And I mean, obviously through that process, it must have been tough for you to be able to get to that place, but it's amazing that you now have the mindset of, it happened, so now I'm able to help other people who could be going through a similar situation, or even just really obviously not as amplified, but just other people who might be down in the dumps, or other people who might be going through tough things. And I've had a lot of people, or I've heard a lot of people talk about, failure or losses as, no, it's a lesson. And now you're able to help influence other people and change other people's lives through your experiences. But you brought up the mindset of the why me. And I mean, that must have been super tough to be able to get over that perspective and mindset, especially at such a young age where your dream literally got ripped away from you for,
Right.
like you said, nothing you did. You were
Right.
born with it. And so
Mhm.
how were you able to really grasp that mindset and, implement it into your life?
Yeah, I think, like we were talking about that dark place, I think the thing that even made it worse was, these kids that I had gone up the ranks in the minor leagues with, Jackie Bradley, Anthony Rizzo, Casey Kelly, all these guys, they're making their major league debut
Right.
at the same time as I'm going through all this. So I hit on top of the why me was this could have been me, like out there with them, with Jackie, and with Will Middlebrooks, and a
Yeah.
lot of those guys that I had become really good friends with were all getting that moment of making it to the
Mhm.
major leagues. And that so that was tough for me, because I was like, gosh, I'm so happy for them, the Rizzos and all these guys that are having, ridiculous success, like, Mookie but at the same time, it was like, that could have been me out there with them. Seeing Jackie and saying, I could be out there with Jackie right now, or, things like that. So that made it tough. Um, so I actually didn't watch baseball for months just because it was too hard, because these are my legitimate friends, not teammates, just they're my friends that I was obviously thrilled that they got the call, but at the same time, I wanted to be the guy that gets the call too.
100%.
So that was tough. So I didn't watch baseball. I didn't watch really TV because baseball was my life. So that's like kind of all I watched. Um, so I had that's kind of when I was faced with that those two different paths: give up and shut it down, or use what I went through to help others if you can. And I chose that, and then I'm grateful. Obviously, I'm grateful I'm still here and doing well. But it was tough, because here's not only was I, why me attitude, mentally it was tough, but physically I still couldn't do anything. I still couldn't move around. I still couldn't, distract myself. So that was tough. But being as hard of a worker as I was, as motivated as I was, I did as much, therapy, and I did everything you can ask.
Mhm.
And I did it as hard as I possibly could every day, 365 days a year. And here I am today. I got I'm coaching college, I'm coaching high school, working out 7 days a week. I'm doing all these things that at one point were not possible, or I mean, they were possible, but they certainly weren't expected of me.
Mhm.
And I'm obviously very grateful for that. And here I am now with a wife and a child, so things are great. And it's been it's been about 10 years since all this all happened, and I'm better than ever. I'm mentally in a good space, and I can use what I went through to help others. And whether that's cancer, or a brain bleed like I had, or just had a bad day at the plate, coaching,
Mhm.
I can use what I went through and these lessons that I've learned to help others. And that's what I try to do.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. And it must have been obviously getting to this place where you said you're essentially in one of the best places of your life right now. Obviously, that took a whole process to get there.
Mhm.
And now looking back, like you said, almost 10 years now, um, I'm curious what you would say to your 22-year-old self today. Um, and it must be pretty cool, like thinking back on how everything is really unraveled to where it is today.
Yeah, well, if I could look back, and I would just say take it. I mean, I said this earlier, but just take it slow. Whatever's going on, just take it one day at a time. And if I could look back at my brain, before brain surgery, I would say that. Before I got drafted, I would say that. Just take it slow, because block out the noise and just do what you have to do and take it one day at a time. Because
Right.
you know, as an 18-year-old, they had to take it slow because all the media, all the expectations of me. Obviously, with the brain surgery side of things, take it slow. Take rehab one day at a time. There's, like I said, there's going to be hard days. There's going to be better days.
Mhm.
But don't let anything get ahead of you. Don't rush anything.
Right.
Just take it day by day. Do things as they were meant to be done. And obviously stay positive, stay optimistic, because there is light at any end of the tunnel. And it's gonna come down to how you deal with it. You're going to deal with adversity, whether you're a baseball player, whether you're a student or in work, you're going to deal with some sort of adversity.
Right.
It's just how you handle that's going to make you who you are.
Mhm.
And for me, I'm going to be remembered as somebody that went through all this and came out the other side. And so you got to think about, how do you want to be remembered? Do you want to be remembered as a person that rolled over and gave up when times get tough, or
Mhm.
do you want to be a guy that when adversity came at you, you spun it and used it to your advantage and came out of the other side? And that's really what it comes down to.
Right, right. Completely agree. And I always try to have the mindset of living in the moment. I actually just got this bracelet, and I look at it like every single day, because there's so many times where we think about like what we have to do tomorrow, what's going to happen in the future. And that must have been in your mind as well. Like, how am I going to get over this? Like, how is any of this going to get better? And
Exactly.
I bet you probably never imagined that, life would be as good as it is today. And it's amazing that you've been able to, get to this place. And for people who might be in a dark place like you were at one point and are dealing with these thoughts, what advice would you have for them, and really what tactics worked for you, to help you get to a better place and a better mindset?
Yeah, what helped me was just staying positive and never giving up. And that's what I'd say to anyone going through whatever they're going through is,
Mhm.
just never give up, because there's going to be positives, there's going to be negatives, there's going to be, a roller coaster of emotions. But if you stay driven, you stay optimistic and positive, and never give up on whatever that goal is, you're gonna find your way out of that. And that's what happened for me. And hopefully I can inspire others to do the same, because it makes a difference. It lasts, life lasting impact on is how you deal with conflict and adversity, and what kind of a person you are after that.
100% agree. I always try to look at different situations and take a little bit of a bird's eye view perspective of it,
Mhm.
of just like you said, having that positive perspective. And I've thought of more about more simplistic things each day over these last few months of just like, I woke up today, I'm breathing,
Mhm.
I have a car, I have a job. Like other people might not be able to have these amenities that I do, and just
Yeah.
looking at your life and remembering what you're grateful for.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it was, my life has been just that roller coaster I tell you about. The 18-year-old kid getting drafted, gonna make the major leagues,
Hmm.
still on the rise. Like after that first season, like he's gonna make it. To all of a sudden, brain surgery number one, right? And then it was coming back from that brain surgery, I might actually make it. To all of a sudden, brain surgery number two. So it's kind of an up down kind of thing. So, it's going to happen. It's going to be really good things that happen that then all of a sudden you might get that rug pulled out from under you, which unfortunately I did twice. Um, but it really comes down to how you deal with it and how you're thankful for what you do have. And for me, it was breathing, you know what I mean? It was I was thankful for baseball, but I was more thankful just to be alive and now to be able to spread the message and help inspire others. It's that bird's eye view where you're just so grateful for what you do have, and
Hmm.
then you realize that others don't have what we have, don't aren't as lucky as some of the other people are, and it's all about taking things one day at a time, taking having that perspective of I'm just thankful for what I do have.
Right. And that's huge. I think that's huge for everybody to remember, because there's so many times, even during COVID,
Mhm.
a lot of people had the why me, when in all
Right.
reality, the whole world is dealing with this. But we've brought up only 2 year surgery so far. And just for the people listening, you've undergone 17 related brain surgeries so far. Um,
Yeah.
and that's something where it must have been very important for you to have a strong support system around you, for those people to keep you up, family and friends and that type of stuff. And I was just wondering, how important was that support system around you, and how were you also able to, decipher which people to keep around, which people to keep close, and which ones might not be as genuine as maybe others?
Yeah, the friends and family that really stuck out as supporting and being the support system that I needed and people in my situation absolutely need. Um, we talked earlier about those distractions and things to kind of get your mind off of what's going on. Those are the friends that really stood out to me as
Hmm.
the guys that would come over and take you out to do something, or just sit next to me and just talk. You know what I mean? Because you need that. You need some form of communication and a bond with another person. And I was lucky enough. All of my friends were like that, and I didn't have a lot of guys that I would say I see your true colors, and
Right.
you might not be the kind of friend that I thought you were. I
Mhm.
was lucky because I had a lot of friends that were there for me, and
That's
family the same way. And obviously Libby wasn't around with the surgeries, but um, all these people kind of have a good understanding of what I went through and what my mental, side was during all of this, because they kind of imagined like I can't believe what he's going through or what he had gone through. So I know how important the support system is to something like that. And, they obviously learned, like I learned, how to deal with stuff, how, what I went through and, what that entailed. But at the end of the day, they just wanted me to be happy and to carry on above my life and
hmm
just be, the kid that they grew up with, to be honest.
right. And that must have been super duper helpful, especially with keeping that positive mindset. And the only reason I ask is because as I bet you can guess, with other people who like, you were a celebrity, like we talked about earlier, in Rhode Island. And so there must have been a lot of people, like you said, coming out of the woodworks, who were like, "Hey Ryan, how's it going? We haven't talked since high school. We haven't talked since middle school."
Yep.
And like, it's good to hear that you had some genuine friends there to be able to help you throughout those situations.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was very lucky in that regard because, here I am before all this with the reporters in my front yard. all over the place, and people asking for autographs everywhere I go, all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
So all of a sudden, going through what I went through, and I wasn't getting any, people like latching on, like requesting interviews or anything like that. It was just more like, how are you doing?
Right.
Like your baseball aside, how are you doing?
Hmm.
And that meant a lot to me because I was kind of fixated on the baseball thing because I always had been, but it was nice to see that others genuinely cared about me as a person, not just me as the Red Sox prospect.
Right. Yeah, that must have been huge. And as well as just being able to overcome those thoughts of what next. Like you talked
Mhm.
about it, how you want to go towards influencing people and helping people learn from your experience. And last thing that I was just wondering was like for people who might have a similar situation where their dream might be ripped from under them, or there's just a sudden change in their life where their purpose changes. How are you able to really figure out what means a lot to you and what you're hoping to do with this life and help this world in some way, shape, or form?
Yeah, well, I always tell people, now being a college coach and baseball coach, and I always tell my players, baseball is going to end at some point. You might be, 20 like I was, or you might be 45 like
Hmm.
50 like Tom Brady's gonna be when he has to hang him up. But it's gonna end, sports are gonna end. But you gotta think about, like I said before, that lasting impact. Like, what are people going to remember you
Hmm.
by? And you know, you know, Major League All Stars, or yes, they're great at baseball and they're the best at what they do, but at some point or another, baseball is going to end, and they're going to have to be in person, and they're going to have to meet people and talk to people, and
Hmm.
not be on a little field in front of 50,000 people. They're going to have to talk and be a human being. And so I always say to my players, baseball aside, how do you want to be remembered? That's why I preach, character and being respectful of
Right.
elders and the umpires and the other team. Because I always say, like, how do you want to be remembered? Do you want to be remembered as the kid that didn't really talk but was really good at baseball? Or do you want to be the kid that was good at baseball, but is also an incredible kid that people love and want around them? And um, so that's what I say to my guys, whether they're 22 years old or the high school kids at 15 years old. I'm like, listen, it matters. Character matters, and you wanna leave an impression when you leave this game about more than just your athletic ability.
Yeah, and that's a huge thing to really grasp on. And I heard this thing that Kevin Hart said in the Joe Rogan podcast of what does your book look like? Every chapter in our life is a different chapter in our book. And do you want it to just be one long chapter,
Mhm.
or do you want it to be multiple chapters where you're able to help influence people? And really, I just try and keep the same mindset of we're all trying to figure out what the heck is going on in this life.
Right, right.
We all have no clue what this is, so we're just really just trying to live this thing to the fullest.
Right, right. Yeah. And like you said, just turn the page, like
Yep.
start a new chapter. When baseball is over, it's time to turn the page and start a new chapter. And for
Mhm.
some, it's, college and then entering the workforce. And it's same thing, turn the page. Now it's time to start over, start something else. And so that's kind of what I had to do, is take it page at a time, and then, start a new chapter, and same thing. And it's worked out so far.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely has. You've raised so much awareness for this disease, and I really appreciate you coming on the show and really telling your story and sort of your experiences of overcoming that mental struggle of going through this type of incredible journey. And
Mhm.
for people who want to learn more about Govornis malformation and want to help raise awareness and help towards the cause, where can they go?
They can go to Angioma. It's so angiomalliance.org. ANGIOMA alliance.org. Basically raises money for research, and because right now what I had, this angioma, there's no cure. And the only, cure is brain surgery. And so there's no medicine you can take. There's nothing you can do about it besides, have it surgically removed. And unfortunately, that's what I had to do. So I'm just trying to help and raise awareness so that eventually somebody gets diagnosed with what I had, they can go through some sort of a treatment to help this, and they don't have to be faced with the surgery or no surgery. And that's kind of the end all be all of that situation. So it's very important, obviously very close to me, that organization. We're trying to find a cure. We're trying to find something that's going to help because when surgery being the only form of a cure is certainly not enough, because I was 18 when this happened, and it could happen to 13-year-olds. And I know what it was like for me and my family and stuff. So as much as we can do to raise awareness and money, and um hopefully, and eventually find a cure.
Right. That's definitely the goal. So everybody who's listening right now or watching, I'm going to put the description right on the screen and also in the description. Um, Go and check it out. Do everything that you can to help, because it's so tough to hear that there's not a cure and that really the only way is surgery. And when you hear surgery, like there's nothing exciting fun about surgery, especially when it's on your brain.
Mm.
And like what we've talked about is that it's a tough journey back to being able to be normal. But Ryan, really appreciate you taking the time, and um, I'm super inspired from this conversation. I hope everybody that's watching and listening is as well.
Great. I appreciate you having me on here. It's important stuff that you're doing, so it's good. I'm happy to do it.